Someone is showering you with affection right now. Constant texts, endless compliments, gifts you didn't ask for, attention that feels almost overwhelming. And deep down, a part of you knows something is wrong. Love bombing is not love. It is psychological warfare disguised as romance. This manipulation tactic has destroyed millions of relationships, shattered self-esteem, and left victims questioning their own sanity. Control masked as love. Today, we expose exactly how this works, the psychology behind it, the stages you don't see coming, and most importantly, how to protect yourself before it's too late. By the end of this video, you'll recognize the red flags you've been conditioned to ignore. The toxic flood. Love bombing isn't about love at all. It's about control. The term was first used to describe cult recruitment tactics, where new members were overwhelmed with attention, praise, and belonging until their defenses completely dissolved. The best way to control people is to encourage them to be naughty. But this same mechanism appears in romantic relationships, friendships, and even professional settings. Here's how it works psychologically. Your brain releases dopamine when you receive positive attention. The love bomber knows this instinctively. They flood your system with so much validation that you become chemically dependent on their approval. It's not different from how drug dealers operate. The first hit is always free, always overwhelming, always designed to hook you. Research from the University of Virginia found that intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable rewards, creates the strongest psychological bonds. Love bombers master this without ever reading a psychology textbook. They're creating an addiction cycle from day one. But why does this work so effectively on intelligent, capable people? That's where it gets disturbing. Your blind spot. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Love bombing works best on people who have something to prove to themselves. Maybe you grew up feeling unseen. Maybe your last relationship left you questioning your worth. Maybe you've always felt like you're waiting for someone to finally recognize how special you are. The love bomber sees your hunger for validation, like a predator sees wounded prey. They don't target random people. They identify emotional vulnerabilities with surgical precision. Psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula explains that narcissists and manipulators have an almost supernatural ability to detect insecurity. They mirror your deepest desires back to you. If you crave intellectual connection, suddenly they're fascinated by your thoughts. If you need physical affection, they can't stop touching you. If you want adventure, they're booking trips. Perfect too perfect. This isn't coincidence, it's calculated. If this pattern is starting to feel familiar, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring these psychological patterns with me, because understanding your blind spots is the first step to protecting yourself from exploitation. The idealization. Phase 1 of love bombing is idealization, and it feels incredible. You've never felt so understood. They text you good morning and good night. They remember every detail you've shared. They tell their friends about you. They make future plans. They say things like, "I've never felt this way before," and "Where have you been all my life?" We accept the love we think we deserve. And here's the trap. This doesn't feel manipulative. It feels like you finally found someone who sees you. But pay attention to the timeline. Healthy relationships build intimacy gradually over months and years. Love bombing accelerates everything. You're talking about moving in together after 2 weeks. You're meeting their family before you've had your first disagreement. Rush. This speed serves a purpose. They need to establish an emotional bond before you can think clearly, before you notice the inconsistencies, before you realize that no one who truly knows you could adore you this completely, because they haven't actually learned who you are yet. They've created a fantasy version of you to worship. The devaluation. Then the shift happens. It's subtle at first. A comment about how you looked better before. A sigh of disappointment when you share your opinion. Suddenly, the person who couldn't get enough of you seems irritated by your existence. The same qualities they praised are now problems. Your independence becomes coldness. Your ambition becomes neglecting the relationship. Your need for space becomes abandonment. This is the devaluation phase, and it's designed to destabilize you completely. Psychologically, this creates what's called cognitive dissonance. Your brain cannot reconcile the person who adored you with the person now criticizing you. So you blame yourself. What did I do wrong? You try harder. You change yourself. You apologize for things you shouldn't apologize for. Meanwhile, they've established themselves as the source of your self-worth. The highs they gave you in idealization make the lows of devaluation feel catastrophic. You'll do anything to get back to how things were. The cycle trap. Here's where it becomes a prison. After devaluation comes intermittent reinforcement, random moments of the old idealization, a sudden romantic gesture, an apology that seems genuine, a glimpse of the person you fell for. These moments of warmth are calculated to keep you bonded to the relationship. Studies on gambling addiction show that unpredictable rewards are far more addictive than consistent ones. Your brain is now hardwired to chase those moments of connection, no matter how rare they become. Love, pain, love again. The cycle repeats. Each time your self-esteem erodes a little more. Each time leaving feels more impossible. Victims often describe feeling like they're going crazy because they are experiencing psychological whiplash designed to keep them off balance. The only thing more unthinkable than leaving was staying. This isn't weakness. This is neurochemistry being weaponized against you, and recognizing this cycle is the first step toward breaking it. Isolation tactics. While you're trapped in the emotional cycle, something else is happening. Your world is shrinking. The love bomber doesn't like your friends, there's always a reason. They're jealous, they're a bad influence, they don't understand your relationship. Your family gets criticized next. Your hobbies take too much time away from them. Your independence becomes threatening. Isolated. This isn't accidental. Abusers isolate their targets because outside perspectives are dangerous. A friend might say, "This doesn't seem healthy." A family member might notice you've changed. A therapist might name what's happening. Alone with your abuser. The cult parallel is exact. Leaders separate members from anyone who might break the spell. Psychologist Robert Cialdini identified this as a key influence principle. When you remove alternative sources of validation, people become dependent on whoever remains. You don't even realize it's happening until you look around and wonder when you became so alone. The gaslighting. By now, your perception of reality is under attack. When you confront the love bomber about their behavior, something strange happens. They deny it ever occurred. They claim you're being oversensitive. They rewrite history so confidently that you start doubting your own memory. Did that really happen the way I remember? This is gaslighting, named after the 1944 film, where a husband manipulates his wife into believing she's going insane. The goal is to make you distrust yourself completely, so you rely entirely on their version of events. When you no longer trust your own perception, you become controllable. Research shows that chronic gaslighting actually changes brain function. Victims show increased activity in areas associated with anxiety and decreased activity in logical processing. Your brain is literally being rewired to doubt itself. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. But there's something even more insidious at work. Trauma bonding. Why don't people just leave? This question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of psychological abuse. What forms between victim and abuser is called a trauma bond, and it's one of the strongest attachments humans can form. Think of it this way. The person causing your pain is also the only one who can relieve it. When they're cruel, you suffer. When they show kindness, you feel rescued. Your nervous system associates them with both survival and threat simultaneously. Stockholm Syndrome operates on this exact mechanism. Captor becomes savior. Neurologically, the stress hormones released during abuse actually strengthen emotional memories. You literally bond more deeply through shared suffering than through consistent kindness. This is why victims often defend their abusers, return after leaving, or feel inexplicable loyalty. The bond is real, it's just pathological. And breaking it requires understanding that your feelings aren't a guide to what's healthy. Breaking free. Recovery from love bombing starts with radical self-honesty. You have to acknowledge that what felt like love was manipulation, that the person you fell for was a performance, that your brain was hijacked by someone who studied your vulnerabilities. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. This isn't about blame, it's about clarity. Therapists specializing in narcissistic abuse recommend complete no contact when possible, not because you're weak, but because every interaction reinforces the trauma bond. Your nervous system needs time to recalibrate without their influence. Detox. Reconnect with people you were isolated from. Journal the reality of what happened before gaslighting rewrites your memories. And most importantly, examine the vulnerability that made you susceptible. Not to blame yourself, but to heal what needed healing before they ever arrived. The wound existed before them. They just exploited it. Now you get to close it. Self-protection. How do you prevent this from happening again? Not by closing yourself off to love, but by trusting yourself more than you trust anyone's words. Watch actions, not promises. Healthy love doesn't rush. It doesn't overwhelm. It doesn't need to convince you constantly of how special the connection is. Real love proves itself. If someone's interest feels too intense too fast, pause. If they resist you maintaining friendships, independence, or boundaries, pay attention. If you feel like you're on an emotional roller coaster, ask yourself why. Trust the red flags your gut sees before your heart catches up. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. The love bomber counts on you ignoring your instincts because the fantasy feels so good. Your power is in staying grounded when they try to sweep you away. Real love wants you whole, not dependent, and you deserve nothing less. Love bombing is one of the most insidious forms of psychological manipulation because it exploits our deepest human need, to be seen, valued, and loved. But knowledge is protection, and awareness is the first defense. Now you understand the stages: the idealization that hooks you, the devaluation that destabilizes you, the cycle that traps you, the isolation, gaslighting, and trauma bonding that keep you locked in patterns that serve someone else's need for control. You see clearly now. If any of this resonated with your experience, know that your feelings were real, but the relationship wasn't what it pretended to be. And if you recognize these patterns in yourself as a giver rather than a receiver, that awareness is where change begins. If you made it this far, comment eyes open if you'll never see excessive attention the same way again. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe for more. Understanding yourself is the work of a lifetime.